Hey guys, welcome to Digital Srini channel on YouTube, and as usual I request you to please pause the video right now and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always hit the thanks button right underneath this video. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about Colab versus Colab Pro versus Google Cloud Notebooks versus purchasing your own GPU. And I'm focusing on Google right now, but think of this as Amazon Web Service or Azure or whatever other cloud services you plan on using. This is always a question, at least I had this question a while ago. And I started off with free Colab and then I paid for Colab Pro. So I have some experience there to offer. And eventually I ended up with purchasing my own GPU and having my own system. And I can explain the reasons why I did that. But I just want to make sure at least you understand the core benefits of each of these, because they all are incredible tools that we can access from anywhere in the world for the most part. And let's look at the benefits and also look at the limitations. And if those limitations become roadblocks for what you plan on achieving, then you can go to the next level and so on. So first, let's start by looking at Google Colab. And I'm pretty sure almost all of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Colab is by Google, and this is a cloud-based Python notebook environment. And as you can see from the screen here, it allows you to select a GPU-based environment if you plan on doing deep neural networks type of training. And it does come with its strengths and limitations, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, but the key point here is you can store your data online and you can use GPU and CPU and all that stuff. And you can execute the code like I just mentioned, and you can more importantly save and share the data via Google Drive. So if you share your code with me, I should be able to run it on my personal Colab account. So that's a key advantage. It makes it so collaboration so effective. And there is a pro version of Colab, and this is pretty affordable. This is $9.99 per month, at least in the US where I live. And it eases some of the pains that you may encounter by using the Colab free account. And there is another pro account called Pro Plus. I think this is relatively new, and it costs $49.99. And unfortunately, I do not have much insights into that package. But it's safe to assume that it's an extension of Colab Pro, meaning in terms of resources. So first of all, let's quickly get an idea of Colab and how to find out what resources do we get when we sign up for Colab. So let me just jump into my Colab account. Okay, so here I have a Colab notebook, and let's go to runtime and change the runtime to GPU if it's already not there. So let's go ahead and save it, and I am going to connect it. So when we hit the connect button, it's going to find a GPU for us. And sometimes you're lucky and you get better GPU, but more often than not, you are probably going to get a GPU with 12 GB. So let's go ahead and check what type of resources are we getting with this free account. So this is a free account I'm showing you right now. So first, let's import our PS utilities and CPU count. And we have 2 CPU cores right now under this free account. And what type of CPU? Let's go ahead and figure out. And we have Intel Xeon CPU 2 gigahertz. Literally, about 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago when I connected, I had 2.3 gigahertz CPU. Now I don't have that. So this is it. So the type of resources that gets allocated are not predictable. Well, it's predictable that you will definitely get 2 gigahertz. But do you get 2.2 or 2.3? That depends on the availability of this hardware. You can't blame Google for that. Of course, they have all of these hardware available for us, and it depends on first come, first served. And also, if you pay extra, for example, for Google Colab Pro, then you will definitely get 2.2 or 2.3 gigahertz at a minimum. You can get something better than that, but that's at a minimum. Let's see how much hard disk space we are going to get, and this is going to be pretty much the same with Pro account or regular Colab account. So I have 32 gigs, which is more than enough for most purposes, because if you're really trying to get some serious work done with hundreds of gigs of data, you shouldn't be working on Colab to begin with. Then you should get a virtual machine or your own system, but 32 gigs for most work is pretty useful. How much usable memory? So let's go ahead and print out what the usable memory I have right now. It's 13 gigs. I believe this is again the same between Pro account and the free account. In fact, when it comes to specifications, there isn't much of a difference between Pro and free account, except it eases some pains that I'll talk about in a second. Now, the most important part, GPU. So let's see. Earlier I had a, well, that's pretty good. Tesla T4. Earlier I had a K 80, I believe, but Tesla T4 is good. But anyway, what type of memory am I getting? 16 gigs. That's not bad. In fact, I got lucky right now. I don't want to disconnect my my runtime, and I really would like to run something right now. So I got 16 GB, but typically you would get 12. So lately, like again in mid to late 2001, so sometime in August, end of August, early September timeframe, we are getting about 16 GB. That's nice. Meaning, the reason I mentioned the time right now is next year at the same time, we'll probably get 16 GB in the free account all the time, because the hardware is getting as the pro users and other users get more and more advanced stuff, the free users get whatever whatever they're left out, right? So 16 GB or something. So this is not bad. So now let me go back, and is there a way I can manage sessions? And I'm going to terminate this session because I really do not want to use, I have no intention of doing any training. So I'm going to release that so someone else can use it. So this is almost like democracy right now. Please do not hog the resources if you're not going to use it. So this is how this Colab is designed to work. So let's jump back to the slides so we can continue. So now if you didn't have an idea of what Colab was, now you actually have an idea, right? So now let's move on to the next slide where I compared both free and pro account. I do not have the pro account anymore. I literally, like I said, I disconnected, but in fact, a couple of weeks ago, but I have a good idea in terms of what on average, the resources I was allocated. So that's based upon my experience right here. So first of all, you get pretty much very similar CPU speeds. This is not incredibly faster. You get like 2 cores here, and I have 2 gigahertz, 2.2 or 2.3 gigahertz, depending upon your luck, and disk space 32 GB and RAM 13 GB. Although I should mention, in Colab Pro, you'll get, you see this box that floats where you can get GPU, where you can select the GPU. In the same box, you will see additional checkbox for high RAM option. In fact, I copied that here. Why am I explaining? So there, when you select GPU, down here in the Pro account, you see runtime high RAM. When you select that, you may get 26 GB if available. So if you look at the Google documentation, it says when available, you can get 26 GB. And this was almost 50% of the time I saw that option, I should mention. So it's not that they guarantee there's 26 GB. Maybe in future they do, but for now, default is 13 GB. When you check this high RAM option, you may be able to actually get this 26 GB if you are in the Colab Pro, but that's not guaranteed, at least based on their documentation. When it comes to GPU, K80 is what I see 90% of the time under the free account, which comes with 12 GB memory. And we just saw that we were given Tesla T4 when you get lucky. Lately, I've been getting a bit more lucky, like I should say about 25% of the time I see Tesla T4 when I log on to my free account. So that gives you 16 GB, and when you under Colab Pro, it's either Tesla T4 is the most common one that I get assigned, or I got assigned when I had the Pro account, or Tesla P100 or V100. V100 is faster, but they all come with 16 GB of memory. Runtime. This is where it gets painful if you use Colab Free versus Colab Pro. If your model can be trained in a few hours, then this is fine. Then your maximum runtime on Colab Free account is 12 hours. So after 12 hours, it gets disconnected, which is still okay if you save your model after 20 epochs or periodically. If you save your model, then even if it gets disconnected, hopefully you can start from that point and then continue the training. It's still a pain, I would say. So on Colab Pro, it's 24 hours. That's the big difference, I would say, between these two, free and pro. So if this is a pain, then look for Colab Pro account. And other thing, in fact, the most painful part of my experience when it comes to Colab Free is leaving the browser open. And even when I walk away, come back, like screensaver shows up, I go back and then it says disconnected, because there is like 90 minutes of idle timeout. And I wasn't, I couldn't figure out exactly what that idle timeout means. It obviously makes sense if the browser is closed, but my experience was it timed out pretty frequently, and this really irritated me. But I don't blame Google again, because this is free. They've given me a free freaking GPU, and I do not want to complain about that. But you have to be mindful about this idle timeout session. In Colab Pro, I should say, I have encountered very few of these session timeouts, and according to their documentation, it says like they're a bit lenient when it comes to idle timeouts when it comes to Colab Pro. So considering that it's only $10 per month, especially for those of you who live in the Western worlds, like in the US, this is a large cup of Starbucks coffee for you, right? So this is definitely worth it, because it's going to address, there's this timeout and runtime issues. And you may end up with better hardware in general. Now, moving on to the next slide, basically summarizing a screenshot from the Google page. Colab Free, okay, no subscription required, right? So Colab Pro, what does it offer? It offers faster GPU, like I said, compared to 12. I mean, faster in terms of not just faster, but also more memory. This is the key point: longer run times, and they say longer running notebooks and fewer idle timeouts mean you disconnect less often. So they do not say like there is no idle timeout. It's just that there is fewer idle timeouts. So again, there is no specific limit when it comes to Colab Pro exactly when that happens. But the key point here is you have to babysit your training. If you have Colab or Colab Pro, you have to like move the mouse and make sure that it is training. That can be a bit painful. You can actually hack the system. I have seen people online like write some small JavaScript or something, to make Colab, to trick Colab into thinking that you're still active, you're still doing this. I'm completely against any of these cheats, hacks, or anything that cheats the system. You do that by learning about it somewhere else. But again, that's because Google is nice enough to give us this free stuff anyway. Why do we want to trick them any further? If you really want that, then consider Colab Pro Plus. I'm not even sure if this is available in all regions, all countries, but this is something I saw pretty recently. And the key point here, if I want to get this, why would I get this? Because notebooks keep working even after you close the browser. So I can just go get everything ready, hit start, close the system, 24 hours back, I'll come back, and then I'm like, wow, this is done, right? So this is the experience I really want. And if that's something that you want, then Colab Pro Plus sounds like the best way to go. Now, there is something else called Google Cloud Notebooks. Now we're not talking about Colab anymore. We are in Google Cloud ecosystem. So this is part of Google Cloud ecosystem. And frankly, this is more for advanced or for corporate type of users. And let's go ahead and look at this. The key point I want to highlight here when it comes to Google Cloud Notebooks is it comes with these, as the name suggests, it comes with these notebooks pre-packaged, pre-loaded with a whole bunch of useful tools for machine learning. Not only that, it also gives you tools to prepare, build, validate, and deploy your data. So if you really want to test out, like if you are starting a startup, and if you have an idea, you want a prototype, you want to actually deploy this, and this can be a great place for you to do that stuff. Because again, as Google Cloud, you probably know that they have cloud storage, they have all types of tools right there. They have notebooks and they have AutoML, so you can just go ahead and import these libraries, and and also the tools for deployment. And the question is, how much does this actually cost? So the good part about this Google Cloud is now it is scalable. Colab is not easily scalable. You can just go from free tier to Pro Plus, but it's not really scalable. You cannot just say, oh, I want like this type of GPU and I'm willing to pay extra or any of that. Here it's scalable. Like all of a sudden you're like, I need my results. You scale it right away, you scale back down, right? So that's what the best advantage of this type of approach is for cloud. And but to get an estimate of the price, I selected a configuration that's very similar to the free version of Colab. In the free version of Colab, remember, we saw that we got a 2 CPUs with 13 GB RAM. That's exactly what I selected in the machine type. And I also selected a GPU with Tesla K80. This is exactly what I had, or what we got just now when we looked at our specifications on the free account on Colab. So basically what this you're seeing here is what you get as free on Colab. But on the same configuration on Google Cloud Notebooks costs you $290 per month. This is expensive, which means you're not paying for the hardware anymore. You're actually paying for additional services that actually you can benefit from using these Google Cloud Notebooks, whether it is storage, whether it is all the systems, sorry, I forgot the name, Vertex AI, or you're paying for that. It's not just the hardware. So don't think about just hardware. Yeah. So here now, this is, I mean, they give you that, okay, GPU cost is like $229, right? That's the bulk of the cost. But basically, I don't know why that price is given that high, because that exact same GPU is given as free if I sign up for Colab. So I would say this is more about getting your own virtual machine in the cloud with a notebook prepackaged, so you can just go ahead and get started. And also this price is when they apply sustained use discount. What that means is if you keep using this machine, then you get that price. But for whatever reason you have a lot of idle time, then your monthly cost may go up. Yeah. So it's $290 per month. And if you change this, I kept exactly the same specifications like right here, 2 CPUs and 13 GB. Now I changed this to NVIDIA Tesla P100, which is equivalent to the Google Pro, Colab Pro, $9.99 per month. And for that, if you get that configuration in the cloud, you're going to pay $800. That's a big jump, right? And they say this is the GPU cost. Again, you're paying that much because this GPU belongs to you. Now, it's not like next time when you log in, oh, what am I going to get? No more surprises. You told Google exactly what you want, and they'll give you exactly what you want. So, but it is expensive. And it's expensive if you're paying out of your pocket, especially if you're in a startup stage or if you're learning. So this is exactly not designed for that. But if you're working at a university towards your PhD, this is so valuable. I mean, your work is very important, so that's when this fits in. Or if you are if you're a corporate user, then this is where you can extract more value by building your product. And this is just your development cost, right? So your R&D cost for your product. So that's what you have from Google Cloud Notebooks. And just to summarize a few benefits of this is, of course, the biggest benefit is scaling on demand. And you can upload data, and the data will not be removed when you stop the instance. On Colab, when you upload the data to this Colab instance, all the data is gone. This is why when you work with Colab, make sure you upload your data to Google Cloud, your drive, Google Drive, and then connect your drive to the Colab, so your data doesn't go anywhere when that runtime ends. So that's one thing. And also the other minor things, right? I mean, for example, a big pain when I was working with Colab, again, I say pain, but that didn't stop me from doing my work. Yeah, it's just a pain that you have to overcome because it's free, or even Pro Plus. There are certain libraries that were written for TensorFlow 1 point something, and converting them into 2 point, you have to change certain things in the original library, like a couple of lines. For example, keras.utils.something instead of just keras.something, right? So there are these minor changes, but how do you change that on Colab? So now I have to go and find this on that specific instance, and edit that. So you do all of that, but then you start a new instance, you have to do that again, because that doesn't stay for your next instance. I hope I'm making sense here. But if I had a virtual machine in the cloud, that's mine. I make all the changes and it sticks. They stay there. So it's priceless, basically. And Google Cloud Notebooks, also this is part of your cloud ecosystem like we already saw, so you have easy access to your data, your Git, and so on. And when it comes to timeouts and runtimes, as you can see, I got too frustrated with these timeouts and runtime limits, but it is what it is. These are annoyances when you use free stuff anyway, as you probably know. And of course, this is built for corporate customers, so a great platform for enterprise level machine learning. If you have your IT who needs to take care of user accounts and all of that, this can be a great place for your IT to make sure that they have full knowledge and control. When I say control, it may sound bad, but the IT department is there for a reason, to protect us in general. So they get access to insights into exactly how this is going on. With just a Colab account, of course, there is no insight for your IT team. Again, if you're individuals, then I don't think you should consider this. That's my honest recommendation. Now, purchasing your own GPU. This is not cheap. I mean, to get a good GPU here, you see RTX 3090 is $1,500 as of today, and 3080 Ti is $1,200 US dollars. So in US dollars, this is expensive, but not unaffordable for most people who want to learn deep learning. But again, if you go to Eastern countries with the conversion rate and all that, these things can turn out to be super, super expensive. So you really want to evaluate exactly whether you would like to get this, or whether you want to go to Colab and or cloud. Okay, I mean, one other thing that I did not mention about is getting your own virtual machine. Right? I mean, you can just go to Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, or wherever, and you say, hey, I need a Linux system with this specifications. Go ahead and rent it out. The cost is very similar to Google Cloud Notebooks that I just showed to you. It comes out to about 300 to 400 euros or dollars per month, no matter what service you pick. So think about that. And in a virtual machine, it's a Linux system, so you have full control over what to do, basically. So here, purchasing your own GPU, for example, GPU itself is this expensive, but if you don't have a workstation, then you have to build that, right? You have to purchase this entire thing. So these things are expensive. So if you want, this is just a snapshot from this Dell webpage. And this system is $8,300. Although it does come with a much better GPU here, Quattro RTX 6000, which is the card itself is $4,000. So even if you subtract the $4,000 from here and add $1,500 if you want RTX 3090, these things are about $5,000 to $6,000. So not that cheap, but still, again, if you have a lot of work, maybe this does make sense. Now the question is, okay, so you come down to the entire system. Yes, I know it's expensive, but exactly what GPU do you need to get? Is this 3090 better than 3080 Ti, or do you need like RTX 6000? So how do you evaluate this? So one way to evaluate, I made a video on this a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. But I look at two primary specifications that influences my decision. I say influence because there are a lot more things that you consider when you purchase something, but there are two specifications that particularly influence my decision making when I look for a GPU. One is the memory. Because if we want to work with large data, memory is important. If I'm just working with structured data, a whole bunch of like CSV files that are not too big, that I can easily handle, then I'm okay with 12 GB. But if I want to work with 1K by 1K size images, maybe I do need 24 GB, if not even bigger GPUs. So memory is very important. And one thing that I always look for is it going to stop what I want to do? If you want to work with 1K by 1K images at a batch size of 16 for whatever reason, yeah, then having a 12 gigs or having a something smaller than 12 gig GPU stops you from getting the work done. You cannot just get that work done. On the other hand, processing speed, of course, is also important, because if you really want to get to your results faster, this is definitely important, but note that having a low processing speed means the time to results is slow, but you'll hopefully eventually get there. So as long as I can load my 1K by 1K images, but instead of taking 8 hours of training, if it takes like 24 hours of training, yeah, I'll go for Google Colab, Plus or something, as long as it can handle my, my images. So these are the two parameters that influence my decision when it comes to purchasing a GPU or not. I mentioned about this memory a couple of weeks ago, but just to give you a quick summary, okay, this is the network I know that I'll be working with, or take some network that looks like a network that you plan on working with, just for quick calculation, right? And then print it out and then look at, okay, the image size 256, 256.3, how much memory does it take? Well, because my images are going to be converted to float 32, I'm multiplying by 4 bytes, and then you can calculate the megabytes, right? I mean 0.75, and the next layer requires 16 megabytes to hold one single image, and when you add all of these, it's going to be 76 megabytes per image, and for a batch size of 16, that is about 1.2 gigs to hold those. So 12 gig is more than enough if I plan on working with 256 by 256 by 3 images. But on the other hand, if I want to work with 1K by 1K, then I need 1.2 GB just for one image. So batch of 16 means I need 16 GB at least. There is a lot of overhead and other stuff. So just using Colab is not going to be enough. Even Colab Plus or Pro is not going to be enough. So I need to find another way of getting the required hardware to getting this work done. So this is what I mean by your application basically defines exactly what what GPU you need. So given all that information, let's go ahead and compare 3080 Ti and 3090. And here are the specifications. Now, which one do I pick? So this is the question. We know that 3080 Ti and the difference between the price between these two is about $300. So 3090 is $300 more expensive than 3080 Ti. So if you look at the specs, first of all, the primary difference is in the memory. That's it. So if you just look at 12 GB, like memory right there, you get 12 GB with 3080 Ti, and you get 24 GB with your RTX 3090. So that's the big difference right there. And this is very significant, considerable difference, because this is 2 times more memory. And when it comes to the processing speed, now let's compare the processing speed. If you look at your CUDA cores, number of CUDA cores are 240, 10,500. That's 300 extra cores. Of course, 3090 is faster, but it's not significantly or orders of magnitude faster. And tensor cores, again, CUDA cores does these single calculations. Tensor cores does tensor calculations, right? Like in a matrix form. So you have 320 here, 328 right there. Pretty much identical RT cores. And look at all of these. The specs are identical except for this one memory specification. In my view, this is an easy decision. I'm getting 2 times the memory. I really want to work with batches of large images. So in my case, I would pay the extra $300 to $400 and pick this 3090. This $300 to $400 is not something that I'm going to pay every month. This is one-time payment, and I hope to use this system for at least 3 years. So that really comes down to having a couple of cups of coffee per day. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so I didn't expect this video to be this long. I apologize, guys. So let's go ahead and wrap this up in the next few minutes, but I hope you are finding this to be useful. So now the question is, should we rent or buy? Should we go to Google Cloud or whatever the cloud and rent the machine time, or should we actually purchase? Well, let's actually do some basic math here. If you rent it, even the basic stuff with 12 GB of RAM is 12 GB of memory for your GPU, it's going to be $290 per month. And if you go for a higher GPU, it's going to be $800 per month. Now, how does that compare against buying our own workstation? I'm thinking about the entire workstation, not just the GPU. Let's say my workstation has a life of 3 years. Usually it's even longer, but when it comes to computers, we usually think in terms of 3 years. Let's say that's the lifetime. of my system. So if you go for a low end system, which is about $6,000, I say low end and then $6,000, per month it comes to 167 when you divide that into 3 years, and 9,250, and the 15,000, the high end one, is going to be $400 per month. So really, this to me, this is more economical. And do not forget, you'll have to pay for the power bills. Again, power bills, the cost of energy is different in different parts of the world, but this can actually add up. Find out exactly what that's going to be. Machine learning is not eco-friendly. Every time I do a training, I feel guilty of carbon emissions. You have to be aware of this. Do not train just because it's going to release incredible amount of heat into the world, and it's going to take too much power to actually run these GPUs and everything. Okay, so this is, and let me go ahead and provide you my final recommendation. So it comes down to this. Are you going to use it for personal use? The system or GPU? Getting your feet wet with deep learning, what stage are you at? Like, are you a beginner trying to figure out what deep learning is? Then Colab Free is more than enough for you. Literally, that gives you all the tools you need. You're a bit comfortable with deep learning and you're exploring various data sets. You want to check out the Kaggle stuff or play with some data sets. Most of these data sets that you work with are 32 by 32 or 64 by 64 or 128 by 128 or maximum 256 by 256. Colab is fine. If you're working with Colab Pro is probably better because you get 16 GB. And I would recommend Colab Pro in general, especially for those of you living in the western part of the hemisphere. And you plan on starting a business, your own startup. You plan, or if you already have your business and you're doing some sort of a consultancy work for someone, then you have to purchase a workstation. You cannot just rely on this free stuff and do a sloppy job because someone else is paying for your services and they deserve a very nice result and in a timely manner. And to make it predictable, high quality services, you need full control over the hardware, and purchasing a workstation is a great investment, and hopefully it will pay off pretty soon for you. So purchase a workstation or even subscribe to this virtual machine or the Google online products, but purchasing a workstation gives you much better control. And if you're at a school or a university use, then obviously you're a student, then are you doing this for a single project or a couple of small projects? Then look if your university has a high performance computing facility center, if it's available, and that should be your first preference. If not, Colab Pro for small projects is fine. I am pretty sure your professors will be more than happy to pay for these, Pro. It's $10 per month. So for a few months, they'll definitely support you. And also, you can rent virtual machines for a couple of months. For example, you're starting off a new project and you know that it's going to run for a couple of months, then this is probably not a bad idea. Obviously, you don't want to purchase a workstation for $10,000 if you know that your work is going to be only 2 or 3 months. Then paying Google Cloud is much better option. Large projects or doctorate or postdoctoral research. I mean, you're still at a university, but you're working on a large project, or you're working on your postdoctoral or doctoral. Of course, you do whatever you can to convince your PI to purchase a workstation, because this really accelerates your work pretty much in orders of magnitude. And also look at, I put purchase a workstation above using university high performance computing. That's because most of these facilities I know of are heavily used, and you will be in waiting list, or you will have restrictions like, okay, you can only run it for 12 hours or some sort of a restriction. If that's the case, obviously purchasing a workstation makes sense. And finally, if you work, use the systems for work, or whether you're an industry or a large organization, research organization, whatever it is, when you're at work, there are two options. Obviously purchasing a workstation, but also Google Cloud, especially for online product deployment. If you're working on something and then you have to deploy this online and you have a big group and others need access, then Google Cloud or whatever cloud, your preferred cloud, makes the best sense in that case. So figure out where you fit and then explore the right opportunity, right avenue for this. So all of this information is not just based on my personal experience. Of course, bulk of it is based on my personal experience. Also, I compiled this, this summary based on a bunch of people that I know of who are into deep learning, who come from various backgrounds. They're students, they're from at universities, they are doing postdocs and doctoral researchers, and I know people who work in industries and who are doing this. And I'm just summarizing exactly what their behavior, what their experiences are in a single slide right here. So this is, again, like I said, turned out to be a bit longer than I anticipated, but I really hope that you got all the information, at least bulk of the information that you are looking for where in making a decision whether you should be purchasing a GPU or whether you would be using Colab or Colab Pro and so on. So if you really like this video, again, do not forget to hit the like button, and I'll talk about a different topic as part of my tips and tricks series. So please do subscribe to this channel, guys. Thank you.